When it comes to negotiating and controlling a room, Tommy Shelby is definitely considered one of the best, but he is also matched and sometimes even beaten by fascist foe Oswald Mosley. In season 5 of Peaky Blinders, there is a scene which includes Tommy, Michael and Arthur in a meeting with Oswald Mosley, and despite the intimidation of the Peaky Blinders, Mosley completely controlled the conversation and the room, to the point where he basically undermined them. I'm going to be breaking down the key points of how Mosley absolutely dominates the Shelbys in this scene. But before we get into the scene, it's good to give some context. So Tommy has arranged a meeting in Parliament with Mosley and decided to bring his brother Arthur and his cousin Michael with him. Tommy prepared his brothers for Mosley by saying, "You've both met bad men before, but the man you're about to meet is the devil." And then Tommy instructed Michael to sit down and to smile, while Arthur would be standing at the side of the room and not smile. This was Tommy's plan to have kind of a good cop, bad cop situation. Arthur would be standing behind Mosley, making him feel at risk. Before Mosley enters the room, you can tell Tommy is unsettled. He's twiddling his thumbs, swallowing and taking deep breaths, which are all signs that he's either nervous or anxious. However, as soon as Tommy gets the call that Moses is going to be coming in, he immediately changes body language to more still and calm expressions. This was so he didn't show any weakness towards Mosley and could conceal what he was actually feeling. So now on to Mosley and what he does to control the conversation from start to finish. So in Moses' entrance, the first thing he does to control the room is walk in slowly with a confident demeanour. He immediately notices Michael and Arthur and gives them a small smirk, almost in a cocky sense. He wasn't expecting Arthur and Michael to be there, but is completely unreactive and even stares at Arthur. He then carries on to make a comment to Tommy saying, "I never get to meet you without your family," addressing the elephant in the room that his family was there straight away. He then proceeds to sit down without Tommy telling him to take a seat, which is seen as sometimes rude and instantly sends a subtle message of disrespect to Tommy. This way of entering a room with the three people shows how calm and confident Mosley was, and in my opinion he didn't see any of them as a threat. Now on to the conversation between Tommy and Mosley. Tommy opens the conversation by saying, "I understand you know a man called Jimmy McCavan." Mosley then ignores his question and asks if he can take a cigarette. When someone responds to a question by asking another question on a different topic, it breaks the flow of conversation and lets the other person control what the conversations are going to be about. And even though he's asking for a cigarette in a polite way, what he's really doing here is letting Tommy know he doesn't need to respond to him, and he chooses not to, and that the pacing of the conversation will be decided by Mosley, not Tommy. He then slowly lights his cigarette before and then answering the question. Tommy then proceeds to ask Mosley about his strategy, and Mosley again completely ignores Tommy and changes topic, feeling no obligation to answer Tommy. He then proceeds to reveal information he knows about Michael and Arthur, showing he's done his research on the family and even antagonises Arthur. He then tells Tommy he has views for him, and then pretty much wraps the conversation up on his own accord, making it a very short conversation, which Tommy was probably not expecting. Even though Tommy was the one asking the good questions here, Mosley never directly answered any of his questions. Now in the meeting, Mosley didn't just communicate with speaking, but also sent signals with his actions and body language. So when he was smoking, he asked Tommy for a cigarette, slowly lit it, blew the smoke out very slowly, and when you're making slow actions like this, it is a sign of confidence. He then threw the lighter onto Tommy's desk and started ashing on the floor, and then eventually puts the cigarette out on Tommy's floor. This is a total disrespect for Tommy's possessions and space, and it's just showing how much he doesn't care about Tommy and doesn't see him as a threat. In any day-to-day situation, this would almost lead to an altercation of conflict. So this could be seen as Mosley testing Tommy and antagonising him. Apart from that, Mosley doesn't move much, but it's his subtle body language that makes him confident. Things like staying extremely still, making slow movements, and having strong eye contact with everyone in the room. And one of the last things Mosley does to dominate this whole conversation was do research beforehand. This is a very subtle thing, but before he actually entered the meeting, he did prior research on Tommy, his family, and his businesses. It just gives him more confidence knowing that he knows who he's talking to, he knows their strengths and weaknesses, and is equipped with this information going into negotiations. And this is exactly what he does. From learning about Arthur and the situation with his wife, he manages to trigger him. He also found out that Tommy was being investigated for a dead journalist and made this investigation go away. He did this as a sign of power over Tommy, to show him he has the resources to be able to do things Tommy can't. But overall, preparation and research can really help in any meeting or negotiation. This scene was only a couple minutes long, and Tommy and Mosley only spoke for a few sentences to each other, but I think this scene was powerful, and Mosley showed a perfect example of how to dominate a room and control a conversation. We see this happen a few times in Peaky Blinders, especially between Mosley and Shelby, where Mosley often dominates Tommy, but sometimes Tommy also comes out on the upper hand. If you've watched this video all the way through, thank you, and I appreciate it. If you've enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe, and there's a few links in the description that you might want to check out. Thank you.